How's it going over? This is Paul Garcia, Project Spurs, going over a quick recap of the San Antonio Spurs' first season win against the Indiana Pacers on Friday. The Spurs won 137-134 at Indiana. This is a very close game that the Spurs almost fumbled and almost lost, even though they led by 21 points. So let's go into a quick recap of this game. I have here my note card from during the game when I was taking some notes, and I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things that I jotted down as the game progressed. So opening quarter, the Spurs win this quarter by 10 points, 36-26. I put here that the Spurs had a very good half-court defense. They had very good half-court defense of this game. They were very active. They were really making Indiana take a lot of mid-range jumpers and really tough shots. They weren't getting a lot of really efficient shots. And so the Spurs were a lot better defensively at the start of this game compared to the previous game against the Charlotte Hornets. I noted that the Spurs' shots were starting to fall. So we saw that against the Charlotte Hornets, the Spurs struggled from the three-point line. They only shot 21% on the night. On this day against the Indiana Pacers in Indiana, the Spurs saw their three-point shot going in. They ended up making 55% of their shots for the game. I also noted how the Spurs weren't being pressured as much from the Indiana defense compared to the Charlotte defense. San Antonio was able to move the ball. They were able to get into the lane against the Pacers, and that allowed for a team high 34 assists on the night. Not really a team high, it's a season high, even though it's only 2 games. But again, the fact that the Spurs got over 30 assists, so 34 assists on 44 makes, 77% assist percentage is a really good number. And so the Spurs definitely had more, they were comfortable for 3/4 of this game being able to move the ball around against the Pacers defense. We're going to talk a little bit about the fourth quarter, what happened, and the offense really did struggle there. Yes, that's kind of what I put here. So the Spurs win the first quarter by 10 points. Then the second quarter, the Spurs take that one 34-29. Some of my notes was I was really impressed with the rookie Benedict Mathurin from Indiana. He was kind of the one player that kind of kept the Pacers as close as they could stay in that quarter. Really impressive for a rookie. Bates-Diop entered that quarter as well. And I do want to note that in the first quarter, Coach Pop only went with a 9-man rotation. He wanted to keep either Keldon Johnson or Devin Vassell on the floor at all times, so he only played 9 players. But then in the second quarter, we did see Bates-Diop enter. I noted that the good shooting from 3 continued there in the second quarter. We saw that Josh Richardson and Keldon Johnson got hot late from 3, and that helped the Spurs take a 15-point lead into halftime. So again, the Spurs were in control of this game at the half by 15 points. The third quarter comes, and it's a pretty close quarter there. You see here the Spurs outscored the Pacers just by 2 points, 32-30. One thing we do want to note is this is when the Spurs built their largest lead. They went up by 21 points at one time. And again, Josh Richardson was a big part of that. He was really had a barrage of threes there against the Pacers, and so the Spurs go into the fourth quarter leading by 17 points. And you think maybe okay, that's it. That this is going to be a pretty the first one's going to be pretty easy for them of the season. And nope, we get till about midway through the fourth quarter, and the Pacers coach Rick Carlisle, he goes to a hack-a-Jakob strategy, where he starts putting Jakob Poeltl on the free throw line. Jakob Poeltl, goes through that process, and he ends up making a career-high 13 free throws. So you see here on the stat sheet, he makes 13 of 21 free throws. But this completely threw the Spurs' offense out of sorts, and so that allowed the Pacers to use a full court trap against the Spurs whenever they were inbounding the ball. San Antonio had to start using multiple timeouts, and once they ran out of timeouts, that's when you saw that the mistakes started happening. They started turning the ball over. The Pacers were getting easy shots, at the rim, or they were getting 3-point attempts. And so this is what led to a 21-point lead shrinking all the way down to 1 point. And it was some key free throws by Trey Jones who made the final 2 free throws to give the Spurs that 3-point win. 137-134. And again, that full court pressure that the Spurs face, this is going to be something that the team's going to have to work on against. It's a lot of young players with more responsibility on their hands. They may not be used to this type of setting, and so this is something that Coach Pop and the staff is definitely going to have to work with them on. And it's something just to note that no win is going to be easy for this team. That the fact that a team can throw a strategy like that to disrupt their offense. And so even on a night when they shot incredible from 3-point range, they barely squeaked out of here with the win. So but they did hang on there for that win. One thing I want to note about Devin Vassell early in the fourth quarter was that he did score his 23 points toward the end of the fourth there, or actually early in the fourth quarter, and that is a career high for him. His previous career high was 22 points, so on the night he ends up with 23. And again, in the fourth quarter was notable. There was one move that he made though that I really want to point out. It was a pick and roll possession. And Devin kind of went right to left with the dribble, and he split the 2 defenders. And that's something new that I hadn't seen from him. And he was able to get to the foul line. So again, he's just showing that progression in being able to get to attack and try to get to the free throw line. We see that there where he ended up with how many free throws? Yeah, 6 free throw attempts on the night. So now let's go through a few others. So just some quick analysis of this game. So here I have the shot location for each team. The Pacers really, attacked the paint against San Antonio. 54% of their attempts came there. They made 63% of their shots, and that number looks really good there. But again, a lot of that I think is because of the fourth quarter where they pressured the Spurs into turnovers, and so they got easy looks at the rim. Unlike the Hornets, the Pacers struggled from the three-point line. They shot just 31% on the night from three, so that helped out the Spurs bridge that huge gap against the Pacers. The Pacers also shot very well from the three-point line. From the free throw line, 21 of 22 from the line. As for the Spurs, 46 came from in the paint, 38% came from the three-point line, and 16% came from mid-range, the non-paint too. They shot well in the from the three-point line, like I mentioned, 55%. So that's a big rebound for this team, who shot 21% in the season opener against Charlotte. They made 57% of their paint shots, and then from the free throw line, that was notable, 32 of 44. And again, a huge chunk of that was because the Pacers were purposely putting them on the foul line and then trying to get the possession by possession toward the end of the game. We see here that it was really the jumpers that kept the Spurs. It was more two different ways of looking at it. So you have the Spurs, who were getting a lot of their points from their jumpers. They had 63 points when you combine mid-range and the three-point shot. And the Pacers were more so those attacking points when you take the paint scoring plus the free throws. And so that's where that kind of gap was, where you see 20 to 17 difference in scoring between jumper points and attacking points, but the Spurs ended up winning their 3 points. The Spurs made an improvement in their fast break scoring. I noted how that was an issue for them against Charlotte, and that was something that should get better for them because they're expected to be one of the top fast break teams in this league. And so they ended up with 20 points in the night. Their transition defense, Coach Pop will work with them because they allowed 20 points on the other end. And then the turnovers were a key issue, and that was mainly late when the Pacers put pressure on them. They ended up with 17, San Antonio, and the Pacers scored 19 points off those turnovers. And so that's also something else to note. So again, those are just some of the quick stats from the shooting. Let's talk about leading scorers in this game. Josh Richardson finishes with 27 points off the bench for San Antonio. Most of that scoring came from the three-point line, where he made 6 threes. Devin Vassell finishes with 23 points and 12 points. 12 of his points came from the three-point line. And Devin showed his three-level scoring there. You see that he's able to score in all three areas of the floor. Keldon Johnson ends up with 23 points as well. He had 12 points from three. Keldon's now made 3 or more threes in both of his first 2 games. And that's good to note because, again, he's still getting a lot of his spot ups as well. But with DeJounte Murray gone, his teammates are still finding him for threes, and he's able to keep his attempt and his makes up close to where they were last season. And then he was also aggressive in the first 3 quarters, attacking the Pacers defense. He had 8 points there in the paint. Jakob Poeltl finishes with 21 points, and he really should have just had 8 points. But then when they went to the hack a Yak strategy, he that's where he ended up getting all those free throws. And so, credit to him. He ends up making 13 free throws in this game, and so that he ends up with a 20-point night. Trey Jones is also a balanced scorer with 18 points, kind of like Devin scored from all 3 levels here. He's been very confident with his 3-point shot. He's now made 1 3 in each of his first 2 games, and again, just the fact that he's taking those shots now that he sees them. And again, we want to note his free throws, where he had 5 points. When he hit those 2 clutch ones at the end of the game. And then he was also really good about when he saw an open lane, he was quick to attack it and try to finish with layups, and he did do that with 8 points there in the paint. Zach Collins also came off the bench with 11 points, and he did it in a mixture in a different mixture of ways with his pick and pop 3, with his mid-range jumper, and then also he had a few attempts in the paint. So there's the kind of like the leading scorers for Indiana was Tyrese Halliburton got hot there in the fourth quarter when the Spurs started to turn the ball over. He really helped the Pacers made a comeback. But the player who I mentioned earlier, who I was really impressed with, was rookie Benedict Mathurin, who ends up with 10 paint points, 9 points from 3, and then also 7 points. He was really impactful there in those first 3 quarters for Indiana. Here, this is all the Spurs' raw box score numbers, and what I do, I'm just kind of tinkering with the model. I mean, with the model with. Make something where who are some of the standout players. So according to this formula that I created, Jakob Poeltl was one of the top players for the Spurs, and then also Devin Vassell. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give credit to those stats that that don't get all the headlines. Not like the scoring stats. I'm trying to give some weight to assists and steals and blocks, and also subtracting if you're turning the ball over or if you're fouling your opponent. And so Jakob Poeltl does multiple things here. 21 points. 8 rebounds, 5 assists, again, to continue to help create on the offensive end. 1 steal, 1 block. Devin Vassell, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Again, he's getting more responsibility and having to help create for his teammates. 2 steals. Keldon Johnson, 23 points, a team high, not team high, second in team high assists, 6 assists for Keldon, though. That's a big mark for him, considering he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot this year. 3 rebounds there and 1 steal. Trey Jones, balance in all different areas, like I mentioned before. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. He did have the 3 turnovers there. And then Josh Richardson came off the bench again with those 27 points. Look how efficient he was. He scored 0.96 points per minute. He was almost scoring a point per minute that he was out there on the floor for the Spurs. And then Zach Collins again helped out the team in different ways. Even though Josh Primo didn't score as much there, just 3 points. You do want to note the 7 assists, the fact that he was actually the team leader off the bench there in 7 assists, and he did play less minutes. He only played 21 minutes, I believe, in the first game. He played about 28 minutes. And then, just something to note are the turnovers, because that's going to be something the team has to work on, especially in those late crunch time situations when teams put pressure on them. And so that'll be something to note going forward for this team. Now, my last thoughts is the Spurs, hopefully they enjoyed that game against the Pacers, because as far as like teams that were projected to finish, where the Spurs are in the bottom 5 of the league in the lottery, they're not going to play another one of those teams until November 30th. So here I have the next basically month of games for their schedule. And, when we look at preseason over unders for all of these teams, the next team who's kind of supposed to be there in like the bottom 5 of the NBA is not until you get to Oklahoma City. So the Spurs already played Charlotte and they already played Indiana, 2 teams that, are supposed to, have some of the worst records in the league, along with San Antonio, Houston, and some other teams. But again, look at the schedule. They start this off on a back-to-back in Philly on Saturday, and then it goes forward, and you can see it there that it's going to be we'll see what this is going to be a big test for this team to see what kind of a team they are going to be now before they play a team that's supposed to be at the level of Indiana on November 30th against OKC. So that's just a quick update on the Spurs' opening season win against the Indiana Pacers. For Project Spurs, I am Paul Garcia.